My call was rather unexpected because I'd never heard of a musician becoming a missionary. But it occurred at Southwestern Seminary in a chapel service when a missionary, Dr. Harry Sweensburg, from Colombia came to speak for chapel that day. And in the course of his message, he mentioned that in Colombia, they wanted to open a seminary, and they wanted some musicians to come and teach in that seminary. And at that time, I had always thought that it must be great to be a missionary, and I'd always gone away from Mission Day services thinking, how can these pastors and these preachers hear this challenge and not do anything about it, because so few made commitments. And I thought, well, how can they do that? And then all of a sudden, here is an opportunity for a musician to go. And it was not only that, but it seemed that the Lord was saying to me, that's what I kept you safe during the war. That's the reason I brought you back. Because I had had some rather hair-raising experiences and lived through some accidents in airplanes. I was a fighter pilot during World War II in China and Burma. And I had lived through some things that many of my fellow pilots did not live through and died during the war. And the Lord said, that's what I kept you safe for. And I thought, but how can this be? I've never heard of a musician being a missionary, and I haven't talked to my wife about this. We were not sitting together because we arrived at chapel from different classes and there were so few seats. So I couldn't talk to her about it. And I tried to turn it aside as the message went on, but the time came for the invitation, and Dr. McNeely was directing the music that morning, and during the invitation hymn, after a couple of stanzas, he stopped the invitation. He said, I need to say something. He said, years ago I would like to have been a music missionary in South America, but there was no possibility for me to go, and now I'm too old to go now that the invitation comes. But he raised his finger and he said, but I trained you and you and you and you can go. And it seemed as though the Lord were using his finger to point at me. I couldn't refuse the Lord any longer, but I still didn't know what my wife was going to think about this, and so I turned to where I could see her in the balcony, where we were both in the balcony. And as I turned out of my seat to walk toward the aisle, determined that I was going to at least go forward, she was coming out of her seat at the same time, and we met in the aisle. And it's been a great consolation to us, and giving us strength through the years to know that I didn't go because she wanted to go, and she didn't go because I wanted to go, but the Lord called us at the same time, and we made our decisions at the same moment, and as I said, met in the aisle. And that held us, stuck with us through the years when troubles and trials come, and they do on the mission field. And we served in Colombia. We began our missionary service in 1951, going to language school in San Jose, Costa Rica, to learn to speak Spanish. But I didn't even know at the time that there were two common words in Spanish and English that were no. I didn't even know that. And so the Foreign Mission Board sent us there to learn Spanish, because we would be teaching in Spanish the rest of our lives. My primary responsibility was to teach church music in the International Baptist Theological Seminary in Calle, Colombia. And then I had secondary responsibilities. I became the Minister of Music and Education at the First Baptist Church in Calle, and I did that for 32 years as well. In the beginning, we had suffered a lot of persecution from the Catholic Church, and we were sort of outcast, socially speaking. Evangelicals had a very poor image in Colombia. There were very few evangelicals. But little by little, the Lord helped to solve that problem. And some of our big problems came with health problems in our own lives. For me, it was a problem with my knee, and the Lord did a miraculous thing in healing me when the doctor had operated 4 times and had said that there was seemed to be no way I would ever be able to walk again without crutches and without pain, without fusing the knee and giving me a stiff leg. But between the time we made that decision and the time for the surgery, the Lord began to heal the knee after 2 years. And then my wife also had a very serious health problem, and it seemed again that we would not be able to return to the mission field, but the Lord worked that one out too, and we went back after she had a nervous breakdown and had 14 more years on the field after that. When I told you of the healing of my knee, I went to Glorieta to direct the music for a WMU week. I was on crutches, and they asked me why I was on crutches and asked me to give my testimony during one of the services. And I did, and told them that on the following Tuesday I was to have my knee fused and would have a stiff leg the rest of my life, but it was in order to be able to go back to the mission field. There were 2,300 ladies there, and they were led by Miss Alma Hunt to make a commitment to pray for me that my knee would be healed. And that was on a Thursday, and on a Monday, the following Monday in Fort Worth, when I woke up, the fever and some of the pain and the swelling were beginning to go down on Monday. And on Monday evening, when I was supposed to be checking into the hospital, I went by the doctor's office instead of the hospital, and he said, well, something's happening, let's don't operate yet. And that was what was happening. It was prayer. I could give you so many instances of how we felt the power of prayer, because we knew that there were so many people here in the United States upholding us. Some on our birthdays when they read the prayer list and didn't know us. Others who did know us and were lifting us up periodically or daily. And we like to look back on our time spent in Colombia, and mercifully the Lord blots out the unpleasant things and lets us remember and reminisce about the great blessings that we had and the joy that it was. And we just remember it with a sense of longing to return and to be back doing what we were so happy in doing during those years.